It's an interesting topic. So what are you guys talking about today?
I'm here to watch Yochanan tear you apart.
I don't think Yochanan has ever torn anyone apart.
Right. I don't like.
I know.
I don't tear people apart.
Okay, then I can't wait for Yochanan to take Asher to school.
I guess you're not a fan of Asher.
I'm not. I've watched some of. I've even done my research. I've watched some of your videos. The charge of charlatan sticks.
Charlatan. That's a heavy charge.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, charlatan means I'm either peddling something that's worth less or knowing it's worth nothing. I mean, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I have over 1,000 videos. I just counted. I have 170 debates. I at least get people to think. And the average rabbi who will call me a charlatan doesn't debate. And I think I've debated more people, at least on YouTube, than any rabbi or any Jewish person alive. I mean, if you've done your research and you've concluded I'm a charlatan, can you give me some of your proof or some of your evidence?
No, it's not really. It doesn't really matter. It's like, look, I see your conviction. I see what you believe in. I've no challenges on that. Everyone's free to do that. But
listen, by definition, I'm not a charlatan because a charlatan doesn't really believe in what he's peddling. I mean, if you know,
did you need to interrupt me? I was trying to say something nice.
I mean, okay, go ahead.
Say whatever word you want. I'm not here to comment on your smicha or anything like that. It's just clear to me you're operating outside of the frameworks of normative mainstream Judaism. Others who are also in part of normative mainstream Judaism have that view on you. And I've done my own sort of looking into you independently of that, and which confirms that. So that's all I have to say. It's clear that you believe what you're saying. But I also think you have, I think your description of the Jewish tradition is not correct. But everyone gets to have.
Rabbi Uri, I respect both of the rabbis on stage here, but isn't it true that 54% of Jews don't even believe in God? Are they operating outside also?
No, you don't have to believe. There's nothing. Some would say, right, it's a basic tenet of the faith, right? And that's true. And also, you can observe being a Jew without the belief in God, and you're totally fine, right? You're not like, it's not a problem, right?
I didn't know I was talking to Rabbi Uri. I've spoken to him in the past, and I understand he's a conservative rabbi, which is fine. I would never deny someone their title. With what you know about me so far, would you at least grant me the title rabbi regarding the knowledge I have? I mean, apart from the smicha, which I do have, I mean, I have 3 smichas. Huh?
No. And the reason is because one of the rabbis who you cite as giving you smicha, I think that man is the biggest fraud there ever was. I have many personal interactions with him living in Jerusalem. So because of that relationship, I will not grant you the title.
Uh-huh. If I failed to acknowledge that you're a rabbi, which I wouldn't, but I would say the average Orthodox Jew would, because they don't consider conservative rabbis actual rabbis, you would get offended as well. Right? Now, I'm not offended if you call me rabbi or not, because I want people to appreciate me for what I bring to the table. There's a lot of people who have the title rabbi who don't know anything. But by the simple fact that you're holding back the title, which I legitimately have, it seems that you have a chip on your shoulder. Now, I understand you're on the left, I'm on the right. People on the left typically hold grudges. And by the simple fact that you don't want to debate me and you want Yochanan to, I guess you're acknowledging that you can't debate me, but you're still a rabbi and I'm not. I mean, it's fine. I've never seen any of your lectures, if you have lectures online.
I don't. I teach live people.
Okay. All right.
I don't have that kind of presence online.
Okay.
Dead people don't watch videos.
Well, that's true.
Right.
Look, Asher, it seems like you're the one who has the chip on your shoulder because I won't call you rabbi.
I don't care. It's just a weird double standard.
So I'm not going to though.
You don't have to call me. I just want to see how intellectually honest and how consistent you are. So it seems like you want people to call you rabbi. It's fine. Well, okay.
Quite consistent.
I mean, calling me a fraud and not willing to have an actual dialogue with me seems pretty inconsistent.
That's fine. You're not going to bait me. You're not going to bait me into one. And
I'm trying. And I'm trying, by the way.
I know you are. I know you are. But you're not going to. And I've heard you enough and seen your debates and understand what your project is about to say very confidently that you are not representing mainstream Jewish contemporary thought or even historical thought. I really don't think you are. And I don't need to have a debate with you about that to demonstrate that or not demonstrate. Okay. It's my opinion. That's fine, but I'm not gonna go toe to toe with you about who is or who is not a rabbi.
No problem. I mean, I don't really care about the title, honestly. I mean, I have smicha. I just do this on the side. But conservative Judaism is not so respected, at least nowadays. JTS used to be in what we would call an Orthodox institution, I think, till the mid-50s or so. But I'm pretty sure that conservative Judaism is outside the scope of mainline Judaism, or I guess mainstream Judaism.
It's definitely not true, right? It depends what you say is mainstream Judaism. But again, I'm not going to get baited into a debate with you.
No, I'm just saying it's
the legitimacies of this movement or that movement or this smicha or that smicha, right? The proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding. You're working outside of even the most sort of extreme kind of missionizing, kiruvi kinds of things. You're even outside of that framework. But whatever, it doesn't matter, right? And like JTS is still a very, very highly regarded graduate school of Jewish academia. Say what you want about the rabbinical program, but as an academic institution of higher learning on Jewish studies, still their scholars are the tops all around the world. So I don't know what you mean about the legitimacy of the Jewish Theological Seminary.
I never said anything about their legitimacy. I mean, I actually respect it a lot. I respect the conservative movement. I'm not sure exactly what you believe, but I've always said that in terms of halacha regarding their charter, I don't see anything they actually violate with the argument that them agreeing that one should at least be allowed to drive at least a Shabbos and back home, at least drive to your closest shul. There's many rabbis, I think, where David Cohen came to that conclusion that behind the whole notion that it's better to break one Shabbos so you could keep many Shabboses, that it seems that Orthodoxy has opened itself up to that. In terms of no machitzas, that's not a halachic issue. In terms of giving women smicha, at least the smicha we have nowadays is not a halachic issue. Conservative Jews have to keep kosher. I don't know where the discrepancy is, but this is me giving your belief system the benefit of the doubt and you not giving my belief system, which is fully sourced.
No, it has nothing to do with your belief. It's not about your belief system. I have nothing to comment on your belief system, only on...
You're saying what I teach.
I hear you teach all kinds of stuff about like not to, all kinds of things about like the place of the rabbinic tradition and where it stands relative to other things. And it doesn't sound to me like what I've been educated in. So it's those kinds of things. And like I said,
something in particular, please. Just one thing at a time.
I really don't want to get into a debate with you about what I think about your qualifications.
No,
right?
everything I do is
so why
out.
are you talking, bro? If you don't want to get into a debate, why are you talking with them? Let you have a debate and you entertain us.
So Asher, look, I'm not in the business of telling people who they are or who they are not, right? But I have an opinion about you, and that's my opinion.
No, I hear you.
That's the end.
It's fine. I mean, I thought because you have the title rabbi.
But I do want Yochanan to take you to school because I think you could use some schooling.
Well, I mean, I think Yochanan and I agree on the vast majority of things, and also we're both extremely kind to other people, which you haven't been kind to me on this platform. I mean, Yochanan, is there something that I do that bothers you, that you think that I misrepresent Judaism in a negative way? I mean, I'm not saying that in terms of a differing opinion, which, I mean, you can mention that also, but I'm very open-minded and it's hard to offend me. But go ahead.
So in regards to Judaism, I'm not sure. I definitely heard surprising things from you that was strange to me, but I can also say that I think that Asher has a lot of knowledge in rabbinic sources. I wouldn't make any. I don't have an opinion now to demonstrate, to say what I'm thinking, but I definitely like listening to you, arguing with you, and or hear your debates with other scholars, other rabbis. Yes, that's what I say.
In terms of politics, that's one thing many people use to discredit me. I'm proud of what I've done and where I've gone and the party I defend, which is the Republican Party. I'm actually a committeeman for the Republican Party. I mean, most Orthodox Jews, I would say, are on the right. I consider myself a rationalist in the style of the Rambam. I don't agree with everything the Rambam teaches. I don't think it's healthy for anyone to agree 100% just with one rabbi, perhaps, if it's your Rav Muvchak. But in terms of people who are not big on Kabbalah, for some reason they gravitate to the Rambam and they go in and more what we call source material, like the Mishnah, the Braitot, the Toseftot, and on and on. And that's it. I mean, that's my whole premise for discussing Judaism. So I'm a convert. I converted 20-something years ago. This means that I had to become a bad Christian to become a good Jew. I had to question my religion, and I didn't stop questioning after I converted. And living in Israel, I had the honor of learning with Timanim and understanding Judaism from a different perspective, a perspective that I didn't get in my local Young Israel. And I mean, I learned in Or Sameach, I learned in Eshet Torah, and I've been around the block. I think Judaism is very purposeful. However, there's rabbis that have hurt Judaism and hurt Jews in general. I think the vast majority of people don't want to become Orthodox because it's being misrepresented. And that's what I try to do. I mean, I try to make Judaism more meaningful, more purposeful. I think that our job is to be a light to the world, to encourage people to consider becoming Jewish as well, because the Torah is life-changing. That's it. I mean, I don't believe that you have to become Jewish. I think that if you're looking for an ethical outlet, you should consider Judaism. This drives people up the wall. They're like, we don't do that, this and that. The truth is, historically, we did this in the past. And I understand that colloquially we don't do it, but that doesn't mean that that itself is speaking for Judaism. It seems that the Talmud itself has more sources that are encouraging people to convert than it has sources encouraging people who happen to have a Jewish pedigree to return. So nowadays, I kind of blame a lot of this on Kabbalah. I think Kabbalah has hurt Judaism and has made it very bigoted. Like anyone familiar with the first two chapters of the Tanya know what I'm talking about. The notion of Helek Elokam Imal Mamish, that every Jew is special, but every Gentile has a soul on the level of an animal. I think that's a net loss for Judaism. So this is why I try to make so many videos presenting Judaism from a different perspective. Like, I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe in Islam. I believe in traditional Judaism, but more source-based Judaism versus all the mysticism that people are forced to ingest when they go to a yeshiva or to a synagogue nowadays. Besides that, I don't know what's so controversial about what I do. That's the whole controversy there. All right. And I've interviewed rabbis who are real giants, like Rabbi David Bar Chaim and the Rabbi Chaim Ovadia, even Messianics. I've debated Michael Brown 5 times on my channel, more than any Jew ever has, showing that I'm willing to confront people I disagree with. I mean, I think to claim to be a scholar or intellectually honest, I have to put my ideas to the test. Why? Because I ultimately want to be proven wrong. I want to be on the right path. And it bothers me when I see rabbis refusing to dialogue just because they don't want to lose face. I don't think I'm ever going to lose face because I have no issue acknowledging that I may be wrong because I truly want to learn the truth. So
would you say that people put divinity in these rabbis? They put them on a pedestal to the point where the rabbi can never be wrong. So that means he can never sit down with himself and question even himself, because
right.
people already put him in a divine-like status, and to show anything other than that's a problem. What
Yes.
do you think about what I'm saying?
So that's Kabbalah completely. The notion of an Admor, a Kabbalistic notion of a Sadiq, someone who doesn't sin. This is an unhealthy understanding. Now, the Talmud itself, clearly they would acknowledge that the rabbis in the Talmud are greater than any Kabbalistic rabbi, any Kabbalah post to Zohar. And even the rabbis in the Talmud made mistakes. There's a whole tractate in the Talmud called Masechet Horayot that deal with the errors of the Sanhedrin. If the Tanaim in the Sanhedrin could make mistakes, how much more can rabbis today make mistakes? But it seems like there's a huge dumbification of Judaism. When people mention it, others don't want to call them rabbis. They'll say it's questionable because it's not mainstream. When, even what the prophet said wasn't mainstream. Typically, if you're going by what the majority of people are doing, you're typically wrong. Now, we have the notion, because they'll say, well, in halakha, we have the notion of rov, right, that we go by the majority. That's only within the Sanhedrin. Within the Sanhedrin, when they took a vote Obviously, in any voting system, you go by the majority. That's what it means. It doesn't mean that we do what the majority of people are doing, because in the vast majority of cases, what the vast majority of people are doing is typically wrong. All right? People who do good in life are typically outliers. That's just the way it is.
I just want to say, I just think this anti-Kabbalistic thinking and thinking that it's actually some kind of separate, kind of non-indigenous import into Judaism, I think misunderstands the roots of Jewish mysticism. Now, I'm perfectly fine critiquing the Tanya. The Tanya is a work of Hasidus that relies on Jewish mysticism, a particular understanding of Jewish mysticism. Many of Jewish mysticism and have been throughout history, and Hasidus uses it in some ways that that the Sephardic Kabbalists use it differently, right? So I just think it's a poor historical argument to say that the Kabbalah isn't really central. And even before the Zohar, right? There's most Kabbalah departments in universities in Israel are not called Kabbalah; they're called Torat Hasod, right? The secret, mystical, esoteric Judaism, right? Which they themselves, as scholars, claim really is from the 1st and 2nd century, right? And that's what the Kabbalah is drawing from. That's what De Leon and Cordovero and these folks are drawing on in the Ramban, right? So like, if you say Kabbalah is not really part of the mainstream tradition, then you have to say, oh, the Ramban is not part of the mainstream tradition, right? You have to say things like even Yosef Karo, right? You have to say things like that. And I think I appreciate that you want to critique what Kabbalah has done to a different kind of way to express Judaism, but to say that it's really outside the tradition, I think goes much too far.
Well, I never said mysticism in itself is not part of Judaism. I mean, the early Gnostics, the notion of Merkava, this idea appears in the Talmud. But the Kabbalah, as it appears in the Zohar, now, I mean, the Zohar could claim to be written by whoever it wants to, right? It claims to be written by the Rashbi, by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. But the understanding is that it was written by Rabbi Moses de Leon in 1270, the Common Era. People before 1270 didn't know of the Zohar. The Rambam didn't quote the Zohar. There's many rabbis who kind of feel like I do, right? Like the Yavitz, the Hasam Sofer, the Noda Behuda. I mean, this is not just my opinion, right? Rav Kapach, the great Yemenite rabbi. There's many people who feel that the Zohar was a forgery. It really doesn't matter to me. As long as people would view the Zohar just like a book of Midrashim, that's fine. But now it's elevated to a divine status. It's called the Zohar HaKadosh, right? I mean, it's not just a book, right? And even if it was written by Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai from at least a legal perspective, halakha is always voted into existence. This would just be the opinions of one Tana, right? Which wouldn't really carry any legal weight.
It doesn't purport to be a legal text.
There are many things we do nowadays that from a halakhic perspective comes from the Zohar, like not putting tefillin during Chol HaMoed.
There are different practices of that. Some people do wear tefillin during Chol HaMoed. No, right. That's not a halacha. That's a minhag. There's a minhag to wear tefillin during Chol HaMoed. There's a minhag not to. And the question is on what do those minhagim rely? Do they rely on X source, Y source? But that's not a halacha.
It's a halacha from an internal perspective. From an outsider's perspective, you could say anything's a minhag. But if you're a chassid,
no. You're telling me that the one Jew who does wear tefillin during Chol HaMoed and the other one, they're viewing each other as sinning?
No, not necessarily.
Exactly. For example, so that's why it's not a halakha.
There's ambiguous notions on how to keep halachot. Here, for example, sitting down when you put on tefillin, that appears in the Zohar and it's understood as a halacha by Sfardim. That's how they do it. Now, I don't define
that's
halakha. That's
not what we call halacha.
That's not what I call halacha. For me, halacha has to come from the Mishnah. It has to come from someone who actually has smicha. But nowadays,
so this is why you don't understand. This is why I think you don't understand Judaism, is because you actually don't understand the authority-making structures, right? What I think you're smuggling in is actually a kind of Christian textualism that Judaism just doesn't have. What we have is Mesorah. What we have is tradition, and that's based on teacher to teacher to teacher. Now, if that's what you're talking about, smicha, okay. But the Mishnah, we know what happened to the text of the Mishnah in the two Talmuds, and we know the mountains and mountains of text and back and forth and arguing, right? We know the Jewish library, right? I believe you do, and it's wondrous, actually, that you characterize it in such a way, because I think it really goes against what the overwhelming
All right.
thrust of the
Let me
tradition
explain
is.
it then. Okay, because you're
No,
saying
you
that
don't
I don't know it,
yeah.
but I'm going to make an attempt to actually explain it instead of just using an all-encompassing word like Masorah, which I'm not really sure you know what that actually means, but let me explain it. The reason we believe in rabbinic/oral law is because of Parshat Shoftim. This is clear-cut in the Rambam Sefer Mitzvot. Deuteronomy chapter 17, the mitzvah of lo tasur, of not straying from the right or to the left of what this court instructs us to do. This court, the authority of this court, traveled throughout Jewish history in a process called smicha. That means the authority to judge passed down from teacher to student all the way to the last standing Sanhedrin. Now, even when the Sanhedrin was abolished, smicha still existed, but smicha had no power outside of the auspices of the Sanhedrin. This is the extent of halakha, the extent. Meaning, anything in the Zohar, anything after, anything that I would properly consider a minhag is not halakha. That's not what colloquially is understood as halakha nowadays. I agree that halakha has to stem from the Mishnah. Can you tell me what's your rendition of the halakhic process?
That was a very well-rehearsed little speech. I can tell that you've done that before. I think perhaps from an internal perspective, you're correct. But when we look at these things as historical phenomenon over the generations, your description fails, right? Because we see the influence of this text and that text in all kinds of legal decision, and they become central, right? And they become centralized. Well, right? I love how you're right. You seem to only stop at the Rambam, right? Well, there's been 800 years of Jewish creativity, some more or less authentic, I suppose one could argue, but all of them Jewish, right? So what I don't have to share, I don't have to say what was your question? What do I think the halachic process is?
Well, first of all, I didn't stop at the Rambam.
I think the halachic process, you seem to always only quote the Rambam.
All right, well, he's the only complete codifier of Jewish law. So who else am I going to quote for a complete grasp of halakha?
Well, if you're only talking about halakha, I think you can't do without the Rambam, but I think it would be insufficient to go look at other folks.
Is there another codification out there that encompasses all of Jewish law but Mishneh Torah?
No, but that fact alone doesn't mean anything except that it was the only comprehensive set of commentaries.
And this is why I quote the Rambam.
Right. This is a Christian smuggling in of the notion of complete inerrancy of the text because it's complete or something. That's totally nonsense. That's just
what the Rambam said.
That's just not a Jewish idea. It's just not a Jewish idea.
All right, so the Rambam in his introduction to Mishneh Torah says that now that he's written Mishneh Torah, you don't need any other book. All you need is the Chumash and Mishneh Torah. And
Right. Do you know the paradox of that, right?
You're saying it's a Christian idea.
No, but you understand the paradox of that statement, of his statement. The paradox is that the two books that have the most commentary written, the two Jewish books that have the most commentary written about them are the Tanakh and Rambam's Mishneh Torah.
All right. Yeah, but you called it a Christian idea, and I'm saying the
I
Rambam
think
himself.
You are presenting a Christian. No. You misrepresented the idea that I shared. The idea of it's comprehensive and therefore the only source, that I think is a Christian idea.
You said my rendition of the oral or Jewish law sounds rehearsed or sounds like I said it before. What was wrong with it?
It was only internal. I'm describing things from a historical perspective. You're trying to tell me, no, the tradition always works like this because these are the sources.
That's not what I'm trying to do. You corrected me saying that I don't know what halakha is.
Asher. Great. So, Asher, you're either deliberately twisting what I say or mistakenly not hearing what I say. I'm not going to engage in it because in the history of these kinds of debates, they were forced, right? And the Jews, well, I think the Jews always won, but it was always about my God is bigger than your God. And I'm certainly not interested in having that conversation. And I'm not going to have that conversation publicly, with people of other religions. I certainly not, because I frankly don't really care, right? And I'm not in the competition business that way.
But it's a debate between two supposed rabbis. It has nothing to do with Christianity or my God's bigger than your God.
That's fine. I'm not interested in justifying my way of Judaism against somebody who has a very narrow view
Rabbi
of what
Rav,
Judaism
you
is.
have come on the stage. You have attacked the other rabbi and said you don't think he's really he's espousing things that are not really correct. But then you said you're not willing to talk about him. But you are talking about him. You said you're not willing to debate him because you find that that's left over from Christian vestige of attacking Jews and
so here's what I'll say about
bigger than
that.
the other God.
Here's what I'll say about that. So Asher, I have failed. You were trying to bait me in and you won. Good job. Whoever taught you how to do that, you should send them a tip or something like that. Secondly, whether Asher is a rabbi or not is beside the point. My opinion is he's not. And my opinion is also he's bad for the Jews. And I don't need to debate anybody to sort of bring that out. What I do want to do from time to time is, when possible in public, to call him out for what he is, right? And to just state my opinion even, not even to call him out, just to state my opinion.
That's not fair. You're not willing to dialogue with me, but in public, every chance you get, you're just going to defame me?
Look, I don't have to defame you. I don't have to defame you. You do enough. You do what you do on the internet every day is enough. And there's a reason why.
But
that's
you
very
just
insulting.
did that, though. But you just did that. You made it personal. It didn't have to be personal. And you didn't discuss the ideas. You discussed the man. And that's the issue, brother. You always discuss the ideas, not the man.
Listen,
the man didn't do shit to you. So why
so
make
I've
it
already,
personal?
So
Do
I've
not
already...
make it personal.
So I didn't make it personal. I think I've already said that.
Bro, you just called him every name under the book right now.
Did I?
Well, you said he wasn't a real rabbi and he was bad for the Jewish
That's
people.
already insulting.
Yeah, those are my opinions.
But that's really
and you
did
that publicly, and then you said you don't
do you
want to
understand
talk
if
about
that person has
I would do that
publicly
again.
Words have power, and when you say somebody, you question somebody's identity like that, especially a convert, you already could ruin that person's self-esteem because you
question
made
his conversion.
No,
it's fine,
but you
guys.
question his.
Don't worry about it, guys. Don't.
No, I don't care about him. I care about the mindset. Making things personal.
He's emotional. He's clearly emotional.
Clearly emotional.
He can defend himself. The issue is not Asher. The issue is the mindset. Do not make it personal and do not bully people. And engage with the ideas, not the man, not the personal issue here.
Thank you.
Engage with the ideas and stop the bullying of people.
Bullying. Okay. Look, my view
because
of Asher,
words have power. That's what I'm trying to explain. Words have energy. When you question when you tell him he's bad for the Jew, that's really a hurtful thing to say to anybody. What did he do to deserve that?
Let's see what Yochanan has to say.
I think he's bad for the Jews because he brings...
Rabbi Rav, let's listen to Yochanan, because you've actually been speaking more than anyone else on the stage. Seriously. I mean, more than Rabbi.
You guys are nuts. This Asher guy is...
Well, you may be right, but I'm just, from what I've seen here, you're speaking more, you attacked him more, then you said you wouldn't go into dialogue with him, and then you said he wasn't a rabbi, and you said he was bad for the Jewish people. I can do that in Darth Dawkins' rooms, and you know what would happen to me, and I'm not claiming that Darth is not a Christian. I just don't think he's a very good example of one, but I would not publicly say you are not
that verse, and I'll quote you that verse, and I'll quote you that verse. And it's just, this is what Jews do, right? So, I'm sorry. These are just my opinions based on interacting with you, watching your videos. I think you're bad news. And I think you misrepresent our tradition to a lot of people. And I cannot comment about whether you still hold Christian beliefs or not. I can't comment on that.
Wow.
But I will say that a lot of what I find in your methodology are things that I've encountered from, Christian missionaries.
Okay.
And that might just be a style. That might just be style and method, right? But it's just not a way that I'm familiar, that inside our culture.
I'm curious what Yochanan has to say.
Really do those kinds of things.
With what you heard right now, I consider Yochanan the voice of reason, the conscience of Clubhouse, almost like an Elie Wiesel.
No, he's here.
I'm not going to take a stand in this. I'm not going to take a stand in this. Besides, I only heard one video clip of Rabbi Asher that he sent me. I think it was a video clip of maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I don't remember. I didn't hear more of his video clips. I know he has 1,000 lectures on the internet, but I didn't listen to it yet. I'm not going to take a stand in all of this. I know it's also a controversial topic. I'm happy to listen to all rabbis and all dialogues and all conversations. That's what I'm going to say for now.
Well, not regarding the Judaism that I'm teaching, but the whole approach that it's better to defame instead of debate, or I could defame you, and in some way that's okay without being allowed to dialogue. To give someone tochacha, let's say in Judaism, to rebuke them properly, or to give them musar properly, that means first you have to see where the person's coming from. You're required to be what's called dan l'chavzchut, to give the person the benefit of the doubt till you know more. But it seems like some people don't want to know more, where they make up their mind, and that's just what they're going to tell everyone. They're never going to allow themselves to be convinced otherwise.
Look, as far as your humanity goes, I'll grant you every bit of it, right? But as far as the kind of Judaism you teach, I find it to be not only contrary to what I think the overwhelming tradition is, I think it has some flavor in it that is not... I don't know any other way to say to that, and I don't know that I don't think that's defaming. I haven't taken out an ad against you. I haven't posted a video. I haven't done like a whole response screed on taking you to task on Twitter, right? If you find this to be defamatory, okay, but I'm not the first one to say it. So
is it because I'm I don't understand. I'm trying to be fair. Rabbi Rav, is it because you're a lot more conservative than he is?
No, politically, he's much more conservative than I am. Religiously, don't be confused that...
No, I mean religiously, not politically.
No, I assume he's more religiously conservative than I am too, which is part of the reason that he thinks he has legitimacy over to adjust how the tradition works. And maybe he does, but then in that case, then we're two rabbis disagreeing, and I think his interpretation is bogus. And we can go through the sources, but I'm not going to do that here. We'll go to a Beit Midrash and we'll do that. There's no reason for me to do that publicly.
But can you give an example without going to the source? Because I wasn't here earlier. What is an example that you think you're disagreeing with his interpretation without dwelling too much on the source?
Yeah, he thinks that particular parts of Jewish tradition aren't central, where I think they are. And because he thinks they're not central, he's emphasizing other parts as sort of having supremacy, and that's a much more complicated arrangement than that. So I think we disagree on the arrangement of things, and therefore our interpretation differs, which is totally fine. I'm happy to disagree about those things, but then it's not about defaming any, right? If you want the kavod, Asher, great. You have the kavod as somebody who knows some stuff, but who knows some stuff, right? But I'm free to disagree, right? And if you want to be taken seriously, then we're going to be taken seriously. But I'm not going to debate.
Your example is vague, man. I didn't understand. What's the specific again?
I think he means Kabbalah.
Didn't want to get into the specifics, so I said a general example.
Kat's on stage. Let's see if Kat has something to say.
But can I just say before Kat talk, the other guy, Rob, whatever, it's really exhausting to talk with him because, again, he makes everything about him, and it's not about him. He's just like ego. Me. It's not about you.
You're right. It's about being a fraud.
It's just hard to have any
Kat, do you have
conversation
anything to
because
say?
you're constantly saying, I'm not debating. Like, what? Calm down.
Okay, Kat, do you have anything to say?
So I'm not sure exactly what the topic is, but it seems to be Rabbi Asher, who it's very hard to say the word rabbi. But my issue with him is that he tells Jews who aren't currently believing in God, but are currently Jews, ethnically and all, that they should convert to Christianity to save their souls, because that would be better for them. So to me, as a Jew, that's like, wait a minute, how are you calling yourself a rabbi and telling Jews to convert?
Well,
That's my question.
now I have to respond to this.
That
Okay,
seems,
great.
like a pretty
Yeah.
straightforward
No, that seems problematic even for me to hear.
Wait, that's an outrage. I've never heard that. That's like an
That's what he
outrageous
said
thing
in
to
like
say.
4 different rooms already.
All right, so I'm going to explain here.
I think I can understand what his logic is going to be. But
Sure.
But
all right.
it's a solid question. I love the question. It's solid.
Sure. I believe that if every ethnic Jew is not going to embrace Orthodox Judaism or some religious form of Judaism, even conservative Judaism, it's better for that individual to become a religious Christian than to remain an atheist. For the world's sake, not to save his soul, because I don't believe in the theological tenets of Christianity, but I think that Christians and even religious Muslims do more good on this planet than atheists do. That's the whole argument.
So as a rabbi, or as somebody calling yourself a rabbi, or putting rabbi in front of your name, I have a big issue personally with you saying that, just with that title. If you're a random dude saying that, yeah, you're ridiculous, but that's fine. If you're saying it and saying you're a rabbi, and an Orthodox rabbi,
So why is it wrong?
because it's just not what we
Why?
believe.
None of this is written down. I mean, the Talmud never even speaks about Christianity. Why do you think that atheists do more good on this planet than religious Christians?
She didn't say that.
Well, she's saying that she prefers them remain atheists than become Christian.
No. She is contending with the notion that people who are Jews would be better off to be not Jews than to be non-Orthodox Jews. Kat, did I understand you well?
Yes, you will always be a Jew, whether you are believing in God, not believing in God, following the halakha, not. You can always find your way back until the day you die. You can always fall off the wagon until the day you die. While you are alive, you are a Jew. Period. Unfortunately, fortunately, whatever the case. So you saying to convert to Christianity, that is poison in a Jewish soul. That is literally idol worship, according to Judaism. So if you're telling me that you're a rabbi and you need us to explain that to you, it just makes me question, maybe you are an Orthodox rabbi, but maybe what you define Orthodox and rabbi is different than the definition that we're all using. Like maybe to you, it's some individual sect that only applies to you.
All right, let me respond. They're just defaming right now. Okay, I'm going to respond to your rebuttal. You would acknowledge that if they would become Christian, they would still be Jewish Christians. And now there's a whole group of Christians that keep laws and identify as Jewish.
They would marry out. They would lose their Judaism within a couple generations. They would be very, very confused. And it would be unfortunate for them because they might have been much happier had they been in a place where they felt they belonged, where they were loved by their family, where you didn't tell them, hey, you don't believe in God? You should go convert to fucking Christianity. Like, what?
Mm-hmm. So as someone who encourages people to become Jewish, I'll tell you, it's easier for me to convince a Christian or a Messianic Jew to convert to Judaism than it is to convince an atheist to do anything. And I would say that the biggest enemies of the Jewish people have been predominantly atheists, not Christians. Just ask your average Chabadnik how the communist Jewish atheists tortured the Rebbe. This is nothing new. The question is, who does more good in this world? Okay.
Let's just look at me. I hated the concept of God. I entirely was, in every aspect of the word, atheist, right? Now, if I had been converted when I was 18 years old to Christianity, would I be the Jew that I am today? Probably not. No. Would I be married to my Jewish husband and have my Jewish children? No, probably not. Would I live in Israel? Probably not. There's a lot of things that wouldn't have happened, right? Even though I was an atheist. And you won't believe how much I contribute to my community, and I was an atheist. So I'm trying to understand here. Should I be Christian right now? Should I have converted?
So I think your outlook is completely ethnocentric, and I don't think God cares about ethnicity. I think God cares about who ultimately keeps more laws. And Christians, even in spite of the New Testament, keep more laws than people who fight against the existence of the Jewish God. I mean, isn't that obvious?
If God cared about who kept more laws, why would he give 613 to the Jews and 7 to the other people? He cares about you being a good person. He cares about you having a relationship with him. He cares about you being like a decent human being.
And those are all laws, right?
He does not care about who follows more laws.
Those are all
He does
laws.
not.
Loving your neighbor, loving God, being a decent human being are all mitzvot, correct?
In Baya. My point is that is not, as a rabbi, I feel like if I have to change my
What do you have to
mindset.
keep on insulting
If I
me?
was
That's the thing.
talking to a rabbi, this would be a bizarre conversation.
This is
But because I'm
completely
talking to you,
derogatory. And Christians listening should be very upset that they would rather everyone become an atheist than remain or become a Christian. It makes
absolutely
ethically,
not.
I mean,
I
it's
don't
moronic.
rather anyone does anything. The only thing
That was a
rather
clever trick.
is that people calling themselves rabbis don't try to get Jews to convert to Christianity.
I'm not
That's
trying to
all I
get Jews to
rather.
convert. I'm saying if they're not going to become religious Jews and they're atheists, it's better if they become a religious something.
Even if they are
for the world.
atheist, they are Jews. I do not want
But
Jews
who cares?
converted to
Who ultimately
Christianity.
cares? You think God
I
cares?
do not appreciate random missionaries coming in and pretending to be
That's
rabbis.
derogatory.
It's
You're telling me
just
God cares that Karl
awful.
Marx was Jewish or Trotsky was Jewish or Sam Harris is Jewish or anyone else who fights against his existence is Jewish? You know how bigoted that sounds? Like God cares over that instead of ethics. You separate the world tribally, not ethically.
What are you
And it's a
talking about
shame
that
that
God cares? Who put what God cares about into this? Where are
because
you
God,
coming from?
okay,
Rabbi?
God
please,
judges
I mean,
people
someone else
based
Okay,
talk.
off
hold on,
of
I
hold
mean,
on,
their
hold on.
behavior.
No,
you're making the Jewish
Asher,
people look
you
very primitive.
deliberately twisted everything she said, and now
And
there's
by the
we're
simple
on
fact
this
that
new
you're not
topic.
disagreeing with her, I mean, shows what
I
a
don't
moral
disagree
idiot
with you.
you are.
I think it's weird for somebody who calls himself a rabbi to advocate for Jews to convert to Christianity. I think that's weird.
Instead of atheism, are you saying, okay, so you answer the
Rabbi?
question, are Christians more ethical than atheists?
Neither
I
of
don't
those,
believe
neither
You
of
are a
those are,
moral
neither of those
atheist.
are,
Sorry, you are a
neither of
moral
those
atheist.
are
Are
say
Jews
again?
more ethical
You
than
are a
Christians?
moral,
I don't think there's a
regarding
yes or no to that
morality.
either.
What?
There's no
I'm sorry, is
one
your
group
argument that
is more
atheists have no
ethical than any
morality?
other one group.
They have no standard of morality. So clearly, someone who has no standards is going to do less than someone who does have a standard.
They are
Correct?
not currently using
This
your
is such a
standard of
Christian. Again,
morality.
this is how you know you're not inside normative Judaism, because like this is such a Christian
Judaism is
idea.
built off of commandments.
No,
Yeah, but
So
it's
I'm
such a Christian
advocating for the
idea to
keeping of
say.
commandments.
love
No, but it's
and acceptance.
and it's about
It's
peoplehood.
completely idiotic. I mean, you
No,
guys
and
are.
peoplehood. What you're describing is an anti-peoplehood kind of motivation in favor of a fully faith-based kind of a thing, which is like a real smuggling
Not
in from
faith.
American Christianity.
Asher, when
I said the
pray
keeping of
every
laws.
Friday night, lighting the candles, I pray for my family. I pray for my extended family. I pray for my community. I pray for my country. I pray for the country surrounding my country, and I pray for the entire world. There is nothing in this that is at all saying what you are saying.
I'm glad this is being recorded.
Me too.
Rabbi, do you think that in the sight of God, I don't know if you believe in God, but let's assume you do, in the sight of God, atheists are the worst thing on the face of the earth? And they have no morals?
So I believe in God. There are definitely very moral atheists. However, it's hard to strive and flourish in morality without having a standard for morality.
Whose
right? So
morality? Whose morality are you talking about? Christian morality? Jewish morality?
Well, it's the same.
Muslim
Christian
morality?
and Jewish morality is the same.
False.
Christians follow a man who was fully Jewish, who was fully religious, and half of their Bible is our Torah. So biblical values, ethics, and morality are the same for Christians
Anybody
and
who
Jews.
tells
in
you
terms of
there's
ceremony.
anybody who tells you there's an actual thing called the Judeo-Christian tradition is say Jews and Christians are the same, just one has Jesus and one doesn't, and that's false.
Okay, that's your opinion. That's your opinion. Of course, you're not going to try to explain it because you don't debate.
I love what
Yeah, because Christianity is not Judaism. Judaism is not Christianity minus Jesus. It's just false.
I didn't say Judaism was Christianity.
It's
ethics.
false.
Christian ethics come from the Jewish Bible.
But Rabbi,
Some Christian ethics come from the Hebrew Bible.
Didn't Jesus say that the greatest of all commandments is to love God first and your neighbor?
Actually, he said
second?
the first thing is there is only one God, and the second thing is love your neighbor. That Jesus said is the whole thing. But that's not what that's.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not what Hillel said?
Hillel said a different version of that.
He said the same rendition, okay? Don't make it seem so foreign.
A different version.
I'm not trying to say that Christianity is Judaism. I'm just saying that they're both ethical forces out there, and they both feed from the same ethical well. Which is
I would have loved to see. I would have loved to see you in France in 1296. You tell me how ethical you would have thought the Christians would be. You're a dumbass.
I'm not trying to get people to convert.
Okay. No. We don't allow people to call people names. You can't call someone a dumbass and just sit there and get away with it.
I mean, I called him a moral idiot, to be honest, before. So that has to do with his morality. I mean, I didn't call him a bad word, but fine.
As well. I also used it before, so.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't use profanity, but anyways, fine. We're just going to disagree on this topic. If you want to move to a separate topic, it's fine.
I just want to say there is a difference between like a Jewish who is actually generationally Jewish, because Jewish is a lifestyle, and it's an ethnicity, and it's a culture, and it's a soup, and it's a mix. And there's a difference between that and a convert who comes from a Christian background, which is nothing wrong with it, but you have to take everything with a grain of salt. Like, it's okay if you want to convert, but you understand there is a big difference. Even
well,
like,
I mean, not religiously, like or not theologically, DNA, let's say. No, but no, for like sure.
When you read the Holy Text and you are not genetically from that culture,
oh, that's kind of racist.
Listen to me, brother. Sometimes it's in your DNA codes. Like literally.
But to be wrong?
No, let me finish my point. Sometimes people who come from outside the culture and appropriate and convert, and they do not understand the linguistic because they are not DNA linked to that culture.
Okay, so that's any way you say it sounds bigoted.
When I tell you brain-wise,
okay.
Like
all right, so let me respond, please.
I believe if somebody has a true conversion, they are as Jewish as any other Jew. They absolutely should not be treated any differently. The only reason that I would treat Asher differently is because it is clear that he is not what he says he is, what he preaches, and what he puts in his
That's
profile.
derogatory again. I mean, you haven't explained that. So I think...
I did explain it. You're trying to convert Jews to Christianity. You're a missionary.
I'm not trying to convert Jews to Christianity.
Very simple.
I'm trying to convert Jews to Judaism.
So address my point about the DNA link and not understanding the cultural context of the religious teachings. There is a cultural context that is also linked to the DNA and the biology of people.
So that I disagree with, that it's linked to the DNA. I mean, I do acknowledge there's a culture behind this. However, you have to ask from what side of the world. I'm pretty sure you acknowledge that Ashkenazim had nothing in common with Sephardim in the early days, especially in the early days of the state of Israel, not to mention before. And they had
what do you mean in common? They all celebrated Shabbat. They all did Pesach.
No,
they all
obviously. But in terms of outlook, Temanim had very little in common with Jews from Syria in outlook, mainly because traditionally Temanim didn't accept Kabbalah. They didn't accept the Zohar. They viewed the world differently. Sephardim came to Israel, or many Mizrahi Jews came to Israel with multiple wives. This is very foreign to someone from the Ashkenazi Welt. In terms of...
It does take generations. Yes, it takes generations through the conversion. So initially the Ashkenazi, it took them generations. Yes. No. So I'm saying...
Between different groups, there's different ways to view and practice Judaism. This is why I'm not telling you to just believe me. I'm here to dialogue with you or any rabbi who wants a dialogue. And that is the true testing ground. Saying that I'm lacking DNA, Jewish DNA, to understand the culture, that doesn't mean anything. We don't dialogue. That's it. I may be wrong and I may be right. that could still stand. And what you're saying is right or wrong. It doesn't ultimately matter. Let's dialogue. If what I'm saying is baseless, then it's baseless. If it's not, you could say it's a different way of looking at it, right?
We can dialogue. Nothing wrong with dialogue, but I'm just identifying perspective. There is a perspective of generation first convert, and there is a perspective of somebody who has been in that tradition for a few hundred years, and his perspective also matter. So once you realize and you take the ego away from the equation and understand time matter, because there are certain codes, certain teachings you will never understand unless it's almost like nonverbal secrets that you learn from your great grandpa that he learned.
I don't believe in any of that. That
No,
sounds like complete bigotry to me.
No,
I don't believe that, and that doesn't appear nowhere in the Talmud. It doesn't appear nowhere in the Torah.
Do you understand about the brain science when they say you're operating at 2% and some people can operate at like 9%, like Einstein? So if you can
listen. If this is true, hold on one second. I'm going to challenge your hypothesis. I'm going to challenge your hypothesis. If this is true, that Jews carry something with them, something spiritual that helps them to in some way view the world more Jewish or even Jewish texts in the correct way, why is it that the vast majority of Jews, I think the last poll was that 54% of born Jews identify as atheists? If they have the missing spiritual component, why is it that the vast majority of Jews want nothing to do with Judaism then?
In the 1970s, they were looking here in the States, doing a sociological experiment and looking for Jews, and they couldn't find any Jewish families. Of course, they convert because they are in hiding, because of the Holocaust and all these stories. And the Holocaust is the only thing you hear about now. Try the Inquisition in Europe, then you'll understand. But
are you going to answer the question?
I am answering you. They hide their identity and their religion, but at home they do something else. So out in the world, they get persecuted and they get fucked up, so they're hiding. That's why they're not atheists. They are practicing their culture. They eat their dry bread. They have their tradition, because Judaism is not just a belief system. It's a culture.
I mean, I don't consider that a response. Okay.
It's food. How is that not a response?
It seems that the only way that anyone here is going to try to defeat me.
I'm telling you, they're atheists because they are in hiding. They are Jews practicing their culture and rituals and their ancestral tribal ways, but they do it in hiding.
They don't have to hide in America.
They do. They do have to hide.
Okay, hold on.
There's a lot of people are envious of their successes and their family structure.
The most prominent atheists are Jewish. You're telling me that they're secretly religious Jews?
I'm saying the atheist, you could be atheist, that's okay. But I'm saying on a sociological, like as a society level, when you go look for neighborhoods and you're like, okay, this street used to be called the Jew Street. And there is like literally 20 years later, there's nobody here who's Jewish. Where did they go? Because of the Holocaust, because of the TV, because of the propaganda, people run away. People reinvent their identity, but they maintain their culture, but they change their name. And instead of like Alfred,
right, next question.
Alfredo. Do you understand? But that's a response. Okay. They are hiding.
So hey guys, so this is a very interesting conversation I never thought I'd be in today. So my grandmother was Jewish and my grandfather was German, and they left Germany right at the beginning of World War II when things were getting pretty bad there. And so I guess by most Jewish standards, I'm not really this genetic blood going through me that has some type of significance and culture. But also, I used to be a Christian for most of my life, and I was a Protestant. I converted to Catholicism, which was a really difficult thing for my family and friends to go through. But I believed it was the right thing to do. So I know what it is to convert, and I know what it is to be a Christian. And now I am, unfortunately, Rabbi, cover your ears, I am a agnostic atheist. I believe that all three Abrahamic traditions are in error. They have inconsistencies. They're illogical. They're not rational. And I believe that the people that are believing in them, some of them are very good people, and some atheists are very humanistic and very good people. So I'm not willing to condemn all agnostics and atheists because they don't believe anymore or they never did. So and politically, I think I'm extremely left compared to you, Rabbi. But I can hear what you're both saying. And I don't think it's fair for anyone to come and condemn another person and say they're a fake without willing to dialogue and then going through and dialoguing with them and then leaving after they've sort of defamed the other person. I don't think that's fair either. So I think...
Shauna, I want to say you're allowed to change your belief system. So it's okay, man. If you grow up one way and then in your 20s you become another thing, and in your 50s you decided, no, I want to go back. You're allowed, and that doesn't make you bad. That doesn't.
Okay, yeah. My mother raised me alone, and my father told her before I was ever born, please don't raise our child in any particular religious faith. Let him decide when he becomes old enough. And so at 13, I became an evangelical Christian, and I was a Christian for most of my life. But I was never influenced negatively against Jews or Jewish culture. As a matter of fact, my mother, who was definitely not Jewish, always told me how wonderful Jews were and how